Well, it's happened again. Something I was going to talk about has gotten interrupted by current events. Hello, everyone. Thank you for letting me spend some time with you today. I do absolutely appreciate it. A lot of people on Saturday, were watching and holding their breaths, wondering what was going to happen as the news reported the events occurring in Iran and in Israel and in the surrounding areas. It's not funny. It's not funny, but you kind of got to laugh at it a little bit because you knew it was coming. You knew it was coming, right? I mean, you knew what was going to happen. And right on schedule. Right on schedule. The self-proclaimed prophets are showing up with all of their predictions, and the so-called experts are on the news giving their opinions without knowing all the facts. And the most of the world is actually supporting the action taken by the United States and Israel. The only ones who are not are, of course, and I'm going to use this term very loosely, allies of Iran, who are condemning it, and the people who stood with the Ayatollah and his regime. And yes, that includes American politicians as well. Of course, Russia has to condemn the actions, right? It's an unprovoked attack. I find that a little interesting because the Ayatollahs have been provoking most of the world for almost 50 years. But I do understand that their need to show some support for Iran, that is, and China, who receives a huge amount of oil from Iran. They've got to support them. They've got to show that little bit of solidarity. But I think they might be relieved because if a new regime comes in and is established, they have an opportunity. Let's just put it that way. They're going to have an opportunity to say, we've been buying oil from you, and we'd like to keep buying oil from you, right? But the most surprising event is that the surrounding Arab nations were so quick to condemn Iran and offer their support to the United States and Israel. And only a few years ago, I wouldn't expect to see any Arab nation standing with Israel. We just wouldn't see it, right? And it's not that politics makes strange bedfellows, not at all. It goes much, much deeper than that. And it's very, very difficult to just have this discussion without talking about politics, right? But I'm going to try. In Genesis 25:1, we read, Abraham taken another wife named Keturah, and she bore him Zimran, Chilshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. Now these sons spread throughout much of what is now Saudi Arabia and the other Arabian nations. Ishmael, on the other hand, who is more well known, of course, right? He pretty much lived in Egypt. His Hagar was Egyptian, so he went back to Egypt. And what that means is that all the tribes of Jacob are related to the rest of Abraham's offspring. And it's not a secret. They all know this. And a lot of the issues that we have seen throughout history between these particular half-brothers, if you will, they could be described as family arguments, loosely, very loosely. And like a lot of families, even though they're arguing among themselves, when an outsider comes in, they'll gang up on you in a heartbeat. They will gang up on you in a heartbeat because the old saying is blood is thicker than water. And it's like, we'll fight amongst ourselves, you stay out of it. And that's what's going on here. So it's not all politics that caused the Arab nations to support this action, it really was family ties, even if they don't want to admit it. But wait, there's more. And this is where things get interesting. If you go way back to Genesis 11, we read that Cush was the father of Nimrod, who became to be a mighty one, or who established himself as a mighty warrior. He was a mighty hunter in the face of, or in defiance of, our Creator. So it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. Nimrod's son Tammuz, right, is the most famous of his sons. Of course, his mother was Semiramis. He's more well known as well, but he's not the only child that Nimrod fathered. And after the confusion of the languages, most of his children settled in what became Persia, Iraq, Iran area, right? They just kind of stayed there. Now, that doesn't mean that all Persian people are Nimrod's children. You know, just like not all Arabs today are offspring of Abraham. Not all Americans, are American either, right? We have different, people came here, they intermingled, they did those things. It's like any other culture, right? The Persian Empire, it grew. And the way it grew was through the use of terrorism and barbaric war. And it finally collapsed under its own weight because people kind of got tired of it, right? Now, I don't gamble unless it's a sure thing. And even then, it's not very much, right? But I'm willing to suggest that the Ayatollah's bloodline, if we had a way to do it, we could trace it straight back to Nimrod. We could. The similarities are there. And what the Ayatollah was doing, and I've said this before, is he was trying to replicate the Persian Empire. After all, it worked centuries ago. Why wouldn't it work today? Well, it was beginning to, but it failed. It failed. Most people don't realize that, statistics vary depending on who you're reading. Iran overall is only about 30% Muslim. The other people make up, 70%, and they're a mix of Christian, Jews, Buddhists, and many others. There's still some Zoroastrianists out there. And what I'm going to say next may sound like I'm an Islamic apologist, but I that's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm just trying to give you information that you need to know, because we have been not tricked, not fooled. We have come to believe what our fathers believed, and they didn't get it right. If you're familiar at all with Islam, you know that what the Ayatollah was promoting was not traditional Islam. In fact, Iran didn't begin practicing Islam until much later, after the Arab nations did. They accepted it first, and it gradually spread. What we have been witness to for the last 50 years is the regime of the Ayatollah. They promote hatred and defiance of our Creator. They hid behind, and they used the religion of Islam for their own purpose. And yes, I do realize that there have been people who used Christianity exactly the same way. It's just who we are. It's mankind, right? We take something and we can mess it up faster than, not faster than our Almighty can fix it, but we try. If mankind can screw something up, he's going to do it. What we're witnessing, what we're seeing, may actually be the fall of a small Persian empire. It's that simple. The world's no longer willing to accept war. They're no longer willing to accept terrorism as a way to control people. And in fact, what's coming may be even more dangerous. If you remember Genesis 3:1, the serpent was more crafty, more cunning than all the other beasts of the field. As evil adapts to this change where people are no longer going to be bullied, they're no longer going to allow terrorism and war to threaten them, they've got to come up with another plan. Evil has to come up with another plan. And that other plan may very well be peace. And peace may lead us into complacency. You know, a time of peace gives us that feeling of security where everything's all right. Everything's fine. Oh, you want me to do this? That's fine. I'll do it. As long as it keeps the peace, I'll do it. The status quo's got to stay. Right? All of those things. All of those things. Now, if that is indeed what is going to happen, and we're sort of leaning that way, it sets a big trap. It sets a big trap, right? Because if you feel that you're in a time of peace, if you feel secure, you're not as apt to be wondering, be watching, be wary. Right? If you feel safe, you can take a nap. Ask any soldier who's come out of battle and they get out of that battle and now it's time. Okay, I can sleep for a minute. And that's usually about what they get. If that peace is going where I think it might be going right now, and I might change my mind later. I reserve that right. But it will be a peace where you feel completely secure. You feel safe. Right? It's that simple. If you feel safe, you feel safe. Here's the problem. If I feel safe, well, I feel safe enough. If they want me to cut my own head off and enjoy it while I'm doing it, okay, I'll do that if it keeps the peace. Now that's extreme example, but you get where I'm going. Oh, you want us to not trade in cash? Okay. You want us to have this digital currency? Okay. Oh, the World Wide Web is down and this happened and that happened and now you've got to know who I am, so I get this mark. You see where that leads? If you're complacent, that's what can happen. It is a trap because you feel secure. If I'm anywhere near right, and unfortunately, sometimes I am, that makes my job really, really hard because now I have to be 3 steps ahead so that I can hopefully be able to inform you. And by the time you make a wise decision, you can still be 2 steps ahead so you don't get caught in the trap. Times are going to be interesting. That is for sure. When I say something, in order for you to hear it, to think about it, you might be going, he's nuts. He can't be serious. He just can't be serious. That's not going to happen like that. And then you find yourself caught. What we're watching today has its roots in the Bible. Absolutely, without a doubt. But I'm not sure it's prophetic. I'm not sure we're going to be able to look at this event and it's going to have all of the proper characteristics that we can point to a prophecy in the Bible and say, this is it. But I do think it is setting the stage. I think it's setting the stage. If we have that time of peace, it will be much easier, much easier to understand, well, if there's a time of peace and all of a sudden they're talking about war and there's rumors coming around, you see where I'm going, right? It's much easier to understand because we really haven't had a time of world peace in 4,000 years. Think about that. If we actually obtain a time of world peace where there is no armed conflict, you have that opportunity to be lulled into that false sense of security. And that is far more dangerous than a time of war. Because in a time of war, there's a time of prayer. Time of peace, we kind of forget about who our Creator is and what He's done for us. That is something to think about until next time. And until then, I do wish you many blessings, everyone.